'Twas mercy that brought me from my pagan land, taught my benighted soul to understand that there is a God, that there's a Savior too. Once I redemption neither sought nor knew. Hello, everybody. These are the words of Phillis Wheatley. The date is October 30th, 1779. And for the first time, an ad appears from her in the local newspapers to gain subscribers. Back then, when somebody, particularly someone like Phillis, who was already a renowned poet, would gather subscriptions or pledges to take to a publisher and say, I've got 200 pledges, I want to do a run of my poetry. This wasn't the first thing she had published. In fact, she had been invited to England to seek publishing terms there, and she became the first African American to have published work in the West, what we knew as the West then. She was born in Senegal, Africa, and age 6 or 7 she was abducted and sold into slavery, and she landed with the Wheatley family in Boston. And luckily, this was one of the cases where they got along well. They were endeared to Phillis, and they gave her an education. She learned Latin, Greek, English, read the Bible. By 11 or 12, she had mastered most of the languages and began writing poetry. They gave her freedom. She stayed with them as family, essentially, and when they died, she went out on her own. And she found times very tough then. She did marry, but she did not marry well, and she found marriage hard. She had 3 children, and she was trying to feed them as a seamstress and as a poet. Imagine how hard that would be today. Had to be even harder back then, especially for a lady in Phillis's position, a freed slave in a nation where still it was taboo, and certainly the advantages were not in her favor. But she created the advantages. Her poetry was well loved in her lifetime, and it has stood the test of time. If, like me, you recognize the name Phillis Wheatley, but you couldn't remember why, I was pleased and blessed to come across this today. She rose to prominence when she wrote poetry for the pastor George Whitefield. Some of her poetry referenced General George Washington. She dedicated a book of poetry in the subscription that she put the pledge for in the newspaper to Benjamin Franklin. So she was smart. She knew how to market and use patriotism and the American ideal. And it sounds like from her poetry that she believed it too. And that she ended up being a world traveler. Her hopes were to raise enough subscriptions to print a book and earn a little extra money for food. It kind of failed. She died in 1784, though, at just 31 years old. That was not uncommon for the life expectancy of the time. Americans today point back with her at pride, but like I said, I had kind of forgotten who she was, so I'm glad she came up on this day in church history, October 30th, 1779. Phillis Wheatley, getting subscribers 300 years before YouTube. Amazing. Talk to you next time.